Wasn't good. That's that old Freedom Claims account that we moved back into Cheyenne County, and Dolores had never closed that account out down at the bank. So that's the reserve portion of the health insurance that stays here in the county.
That's what we paid 11 in November of last year, then, the 27th. Is that correct? There was remaining of that?
No, this is the Freedom Claims. It isn't named Freedom Claims because that is the name on the account, is Cheyenne County Health Trust, but that is the Freedom Claims portion of our health insurance. It's kind of confusing. I'd like to change the account, the name on that account, just so it better represents what it truly is.
Do you have a suggestion as to how you would name it?
I would probably just put it Freedom Claims Management, because that's truly the bill that we are paying is Freedom Claims. We're not paying, the Cheyenne County Health Trust was what we had with corporate plan, but that's just the name on the account.
That's the way the system was set up some time ago.
And Dolores didn't close that account out because she was paying old claims out of the money that was in that reserve. It's a reserve fund, basically. And maybe at the first of the year when we redo all of our accounts, maybe we can.
Why don't you work with Dolores and find out if it's going to affect her?
Yeah.
If it doesn't, let's change it.
It's just
for clarity.
Just for clarity and understanding what we're truly paying. I think it would clean the records up a little bit.
Yeah, that would.
Because that's confusing to me.
Yeah, because I was looking at the insurance stuff and trying to figure out, oh boy.
We'll have to redo all those signature cards in January, and maybe we can get something cleaned up then.
And this part of the medical is taken out of the cafeteria plan.
Right. That's the employee's cafeteria plan. It is being expensed.
When Sweeney came through, you noted the check the Good Sam because they did the crack sealing.
Pardon?
You noted Sweeney go and check the Good Sam for the crack sealing while they were up there because we wanted whoever did the airport to check Good Sam as well. Were you?
I didn't list it in there.
Well, I knew about the airport, but
Well, we need the.
Well, they were supposed to check over to Good Sam to see if they was going to do that.
I didn't know if they had done that as well.
what page is that?
That's the last
Last
page.
page.
23 or 24. You don't know? Do you know? No. Be too bad if they didn't.
That would to drive right past it and not take care of it.
And this is the contract.
Right.
Hello, Eddie.
That's what you have.
Good morning.
Good morning, Eddie.
I'm glad they finally got that settled. I didn't notice that on the last page.
That might have been work that Road and Bridge, well, I don't know.
Hey, Doc, how are you? Good.
Beautiful morning. So far.
You guys have any questions on the minutes or warrants?
No.
Okay.
I do
I'll
not.
need a motion to.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as written.
I'm going to include the warrants in there. to
Oh,
approve.
and the warrants as wrote.
I'm sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Shauna Blanca called and said, Jane Young, this is the end of her 4-year term. And so it's been this board's responsibility to advertise and to interview and appoint the next board member. Right now, there's just one that is completing their 4-year term. And so just wanted to bring that to your attention, and we can work with Karen to get an ad in the paper. And
Get off the board.
I don't know. You know, Shauna was kind of wondering how the board was going to handle it, whether you wanted, if Jane expressed an interest to stay on the board, if you were going to have her reapply, or whether, how you wanted to handle that.
It needs to be an election, like it has always been, but I'd like to know if she's going to want to stay on. We'll have her in there as well. What do you guys think?
Okay. Okay.
Right, so.
Let's see. Karen, we may be a little ahead of advertising for that. Usually 2 weeks to advertise, and then they'll interview at the last meeting of the year.
Can't see what did you want to throw in, I'll make a note of it.
Okay, I think we're a little early, maybe, but,
Well, you'll have another meeting before then.
yes.
And you'll talk about it then.
I'll make myself a note to get that in the paper, yeah.
In the meantime, we'll put this in the meeting that you work on.
There's a check for the script money, so we'll give that to you today. Do
Okay.
we give it to you?
I can take it to them to Derek Carmichael, I think.
Okay, all right. I'll, yeah. You'll have your business. Stop by and pick it up from the girls
Okay.
before you leave.
All right.
We have to.
Might have to remind me when I leave.
You can find anybody who wants to.
I was excited that I remembered to say something to you. So I did.
And I'm passing it back to you.
I did my part.
That's what the hell's going on.
Ryan Murray just brought that letter in to appoint him to the Homeland Security Council that needs your signature.
You guys okay with that?
Good morning.
Shut up.
She's, I haven't seen her, but, morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Joe. Morning.
These guys are here. Is everybody in the group here?
We have one more with an attorney from Bridgetown.
Okay.
They see it after. That's kind of bad.
Yes.
Let's see. Two in there. That's more. Well, you know, looks like it's stabled out a little bit. It hasn't changed. And when I get that
transfer made, it should look a little better. Yeah, that's contractual. That isn't personnel, that's contractual. So,
She didn't think we were on mountain time.
Who?
The attorney from,
Well, if it didn't, they'll go on and get to us at the end of the meeting. They'll teach us.
well, we got a few other things to talk about.
It's not uncommon.
Goodland sure messes us up.
it's all their fault.
But it's always an excuse to be out there.
Kel Shields is taking a teaching job over in Banquet. So he gets his wife and kids all off to work, and they go to school, and then he goes to teach.
Yeah, and then they wait for him to get home for.
Well,
supper.
actually, you know, he always coached, and all his career, he's been always had after school. And he gets off at 4 o'clock, which is 5 our time, so he's
So
home.
he's actually better
Yeah,
off
he said I'm
doing
actually getting home earlier. My concern is that they pay about $6,000 a year more in Nebraska for the safety. I think they're gonna start bleeding over there. I mean, you can drive for that amount of money. Well, yeah.
I'd be a fair weather driver too.
Money don't mean that much.
Oh, John. Went out to, he's here, yes. He said, Tom Kelly.
Where's Sarah? Where's Shep?
Who sat up here with John and I. Going to, probably present
Yes, yeah.
instruction.
That's kind of for your information.
Introduction to your presentation of the building commission.
How are you, Laura?
I think John will be back here. He must have gone to the restroom, I guess. Thank you. Oh, okay. Okay. Let's schedule somebody that you always have to be concerned that individuals look at, especially in the state of Goodland, and think, okay, this is mountain time, and Cheyenne County will be on mountain time. Because it's not, okay.
For accuracy, there were questions.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Give him a job.
You look a little nervous.
Commission meeting went to us where she said be there at 10:30. And I walked in at 10:30 and she said, you were
She slipped in under the radar. Good. Good morning, Commissioners. There's a group of us here representing the Senior Living Task Force that you appointed some time back, and we've been busy. In fact, since you had your last commissioner meeting on the 30th of October, we were meeting that day and interviewing construction managers, and then we also met on November the 12th to review the scoring of our construction managers, and at that meeting we chose a firm that will present to you this morning for your approval. And we also had phone conversations on both of those meeting dates with a law firm in Wichita, Gilmore and Bell, and Sarah Steele in particular is the attorney that we've been visiting with in regards to the creation of a public building commission. And we had made the determination that we should probably research the establishment of a public building commission from some research that was done by our consultant, Mr. John Grace, who is also here. And so he, in doing some research, he found that might be the most efficient and lowest cost to the county for the creation and construction or remodeling of public facilities. And so that's why we have Ms. Steele here to enlighten you on the advantages of a public building commission for construction or remodeling of public buildings in a county, and it could be in the city. And I know the City of St. Francis and the Rec Commission are also looking at the same option for a swimming pool, a new swimming pool, and it's actually the same firm, Gilmore and Bell, who is working with the city. So I guess today we have recommendations for you, three areas. Number one, the selection of a construction manager. Number two would be hiring of Gilmore and Bell firm for the creation of a public building commission and assistance in the issuance of revenue bonds. And then thirdly would be the continuance of the task force contract with John Grace, our consultant. He was hired by the task force in May of this year, and his contract expires the end of this year. And so this would be an addendum or a continuation of his contract, and we would seek your approval and signing that continuation of his contract. I think we'll maybe start with the selection of the construction manager. We were fortunate and were able to, we sought and had three firms that came and interviewed, and I think the task force felt that any three of those firms would have been a good candidate as a construction manager. In fact, once we scored the three firms, the vote on the top two were within, out of 100 points, were probably within 2 or 3 points of each other. So whether we chose one or the other is probably immaterial, but the three firms that we interviewed were Fuca Construction of Inman, Kansas, Hutton Construction of Wichita, Kansas, and they also have a branch in Garden City. And then the third firm was BD Construction out of Kearney, Nebraska. And Mr. Grace had developed a scoring sheet. When we did the interviews with these three firms, they sent out brochures, which I think Commissioner Radcliffe brought copies for all the commissioners to view. They had their timeline, they had reference letters, they had their pricing, and then there was the interview, and that was basically, we determined the comfort that the task force felt with any of these firms. So we did choose Hutton Construction, and we felt that they had the best value based on the proposal criteria and weighting factors that we utilized to make that determination. So we chose Hutton, and so therefore we're seeking approval to select Hutton Construction for the preparation of the contract, which will then be reviewed by you as county commissioners to sign. And we should have copies of that, their contract, their proposed contract by your next meeting. I might turn over the details of that contract. Actually, Mr. Grace negotiated with them. They were the high bid. They had the highest bid cost-wise, but Mr. Grace negotiated with them so that actually their contract, the cost of their services is very much in line with the second firm. So do you want to discuss the contract?
Tom Fuqua actually had the highest bid.
Okay.
It was way.
Yeah, okay, between, yeah, yes, okay.
I'll just add a couple things. The construction manager approach is very much above board with all the costs, so that we will have all the costs presented to us, and then the contract works that there's an overhead fee then paid to the contractor, and that overhead fee will be 4.5%, and that is the lowest overhead fee of all three companies. Then we have the general conditions, which are their superintendent for the job, setting up their trailers and all those kinds of things. So that's an additional cost. But what they will do is they will serve as our key coordinator of the construction. So they will go out and get sub bids from all plumbers, electricians, all these people. They try to get 3 for each trade. Then they bring those bids back to our task force, and we review all of those bids. And generally, we're going to take, the lowest bid, unless there's some particular reason why we shouldn't. So all of that information we'll be reviewing as a task force, and then bringing forward final recommendations as we move ahead. So I'll be glad to answer any questions about that.
I might add, when he said they're breaking that down into subcontracting, they're doing that to let the locals get a chance to bid.
Good.
To try to keep as much of that here as possible.
Mention about Hutton having a grant writer on staff, and he can apply for tax credits for the county, which we may or may not get, but we should take advantage of that.
Yeah, that was kind of a value added. We had a hard time putting a price to that, but it's a very good value that they offer. They have a full-time employee that will work on our behalf to seek out grants from foundations and also the tax credits that are available through the Kansas Department of Commerce. And those will come next April is when we'll have to make application. So they will do the legwork on all of that, and they've already done this on other projects and have been successful. So we'll utilize them for that. And the scoring that Tom referred to is required by USDA Rural Development. We used a proper sheet, and we evaluated them based upon price and also based upon their experience in building retirement or nursing facilities. So,
What do you think the additional cost, you said that the setup, there would be an additional cost for that, what are we looking at?
those are going to run probably, when you add all that stuff together, probably around $400,000. Because those are, you have to put your bonds in there, and the project has to be bonded by USDA. And the insurance alone on those bonds and all of that could run up $100,000. But the other costs in would be about $300,000.
And I might mention, Brett, and all three of the firms, that's the same, pretty standard. Those are just almost pass-through
Yeah.
items. It's not like this is an addition in this particular, all of them are the same on those. It's just the cost of doing business.
And Sarah, you've worked with Hutton before, I take it being your
I'm
project.
certainly familiar with them, yes.
Okay.
That's-
Are some of those costs recovered later?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, all of those costs will be wrapped up in the financing and then as part of the project cost.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to approve our selection or if you want to do all, we'll have 3 items that we'll need for you to take action on this morning. So I don't know if you want to do those as we discuss them or if you want to wait to the end of our presentation and take action on all 3 items at the same time.
I'm aware of all 3 items, but these other gentlemen are not, so why don't you inform them? And,
Okay.
and we
Then
can,
we'll just
Yeah.
then continue on to the next item. The second item on our list is the hiring of the Gilmore and Bell law firm for the creation of a public building commission and assistance in the issuance of the revenue bonds. And really, this is kind of a new concept for the task force because as we initially met, this wasn't even on our radar screen as a possibility, but with research that Mr. Grace had completed and in visiting with our county auditor and then with the Kansas Association of Counties Association, determined that this is a way many counties were utilizing public building commissions, and so he got in contact. This law firm was Gilmore and Bell was recommended as one of the leading firms in the state in regards to knowing how to utilize public building commissions, and so John had been in contact with that firm and particularly with Ms. Steele, and so she has been on conference call with our task force our last 2 meetings, and so we felt that probably having her attend this meeting and basically share with you why a public building commission would be our best option. So I'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Steele with Gilmore and Bell. We have previously served as bond counsel for the county, I believe on your, on your fairgrounds as well.
Gardner?
Thank you. So Gilmore and Bell does about 80% of the bond issues throughout the state. And I want to say up front, the bonds I'm talking about are totally different than the bond that John Grace just mentioned. The performance bond is a construction issue. We don't have anything to do with that. counties are prohibited by law from going out to the bank and borrowing money, as you know. They have a few limited exceptions that allow them to finance projects, and there's various types of bonds that may be issued. When the task force approached our firm, we reviewed the way that your nursing home and prospective assisted living is set up, and determined that there really weren't a whole lot of options for you to finance a $4 million plus dollar project. The Homes for the Aged that the nursing home is set up under has specific limits on how much you can issue in bonds, and there are a 2% limit in one case, and that's 2% of your total assessed valuation, which based on last year's assessed valuation was about $800,000, a little bit more than that. Those were some general obligation bonds. The other statute allows for improvements to your existing facility, but those are limited to 1% of assessed valuation. So there you're just looking at about a $400,000 ability. Furthermore, we reviewed the agreement that you have with the Good Samaritan Society, and the way that's structured, at least right now, all the revenues from that facility go to that 501c3. The county is just responsible for maintaining basically the shell of the building. And so any sort of revenue bonds that you could issue under that statute that are straight revenues from that facility really don't work with the way that you have it structured, where all the revenues and all the expenses are paid. The revenues go to Good Samaritan, and then they pay all your expenses. So then we're down to a public building commission. So I didn't want you to feel like I was only giving you one alternative, but a public building commission really is, in this case, your only alternative for being able to finance this facility in an easy, expeditious manner. So a public building commission is allowed under state law to be created by either a city or a county. It's a separate, standalone entity, and its sole purpose is to be able to issue bonds, lease a facility that is constructed with those bonds to either a governmental entity or a 501c3. So in this case, we kind of have a hybrid of both. They really serve at the discretion of the jurisdiction that created them, and they can't go out and issue bonds without the consent and without that underlying lease that they would have to the county in this case. So it requires county commission consent for them to do any sort of financing. What they do is they issue bonds, they enter into a lease with the county. You may be familiar with leases. This is not subject to annual appropriation. Most of your leases are. A lease under a Public Building Commission statute is a binding lease. That means you have to levy taxes to be able to make the payment under the lease for every year of that lease. The leases can go up to 50 years. I'm not familiar with one that's gone more than about 20, but they can go up to 50 years under the statute. And the commitment of the county to pay the lease payment, which is sufficient to pay off your bonds, is a binding commitment, and USDA is very comfortable with this. We call it a backhanded general obligation. Because as you can imagine, your binding lease says, I'm going to levy taxes be sufficient to pay the debt service on it, which is just like what you do under a general obligation bond. But it's called a Public Building Commission revenue bond. So I'll just stop there. I mean, that's kind of the structure of the transaction. And then I'll get into the procedures. Do you have any questions at all?
I know you're aware that we currently have a 6 mil tax for the home for the aged.
Correct.
In your dissertation just now, that would also suffice for funding for the bonds?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You know, it depends on how much you're financing ultimately and how long you're spreading that repayment over. USDA, as you know, you can go up to 40 years. I don't know what you've discussed with USDA on the amortization, but once you know pretty much what your costs are going to be and what the amortization will be, USDA will run a schedule, we can run a schedule to show what the annual payments will be.
I'll mention that in my financial pro forma that I've done on the project, and assuming a debt of, I believe it was $4 million or $4.5 million on a 30-year payback with USDA buying the bonds, that would take about $200,000 a year of principal and interest payment. And I think the 6 mil generates about $260,000 a year. So just in our preliminary financial planning, that a 30-year bond at the rate that USDA has now would pay for about $4 to $4.5 million. So, yeah.
Okay, I really jumped ahead. The task force called me out here mainly to present an engagement letter or a contract with you, and have they been?
Yeah, you sent that, and I think
I've copied it.
you copied it for everybody there. Okay.
Great.
Well, no, I copied a set I didn't know whether you had a set to sign or whether.
Well, I'm glad. I have one. And so if you have one, then let's pass that along. And then Mr. Radcliffe had a chance to look at it. The engagement of our firm is one where you would engage us. We would assist you in drafting all of the documents necessary, including the creation of your Public Building Commission and working with the Public Building Commission for the issue of the bonds and working all the way through the procedure. We're paid a flat fee, and that fee is only due if and when we close on the bonds. So that's how Gilmore and Bell has worked for a number of years, and being a lawyer and not having to do hourly rates is a great deal. So the fee that is quoted in that letter is based on the schedule that we've worked out with USDA Rural Development on their financings. Those tend to be a little more of a skinny credit. I'm not saying your credit is, but usually that's how the USDA Rural Development deals work, and so we're willing to reduce our fees. That's lower than what our normal fee would be on this type of transaction. But it is based on the schedule with USDA Rural Development.
Sarah, you might want to mention that we would have to do two financings. We would have to do interim,
That's
and then
good.
we'd have to do the permanent. And then about the membership of the committee, our task force would like another couple of weeks to make recommendation on that.
Okay.
At least.
Okay. Yeah, this is purely to to be presented to you today does not need to be approved at this point in time. If the task force, wants to have some additional time to review, that's great. The next item, if we're ready to move on, I had to discuss was kind of the procedure and what you would be doing moving forward if and when you choose to move forward with a public building commission. Is that appropriate for me to move on?
I think we could go ahead with the process to begin on the Public Building Commission, which would be the advertising in our 2 local papers that we're going to be seeking members for that commission. And I believe you stated it was for 3 people?
Well, there are many options on creating a public building commission. The statute provides that you must have at least 3 members, but no more than 9. So you have the ability to create a separate entity with up to 9 members. Anytime you get to a point where you have that large of a committee, as you know, it's sometimes hard to get quorum.
Correct.
And so you might think about that as to how you want to set up the numbers on the Public Building Commission. The procedure is very simple. You pass a resolution creating the Public Building Commission, and then this commission would appoint the members. And again, I sent just a rough draft of documents that pertain to the creation of the Public Building Commission. I inundated you at the end of the week, didn't I?
I wondered how much I was going to print out.
Kept coming and coming. But this document is one that's just used to create the Public Building Commission and appoint members to that commission. Once the Public Building Commission is created, then this commission would have 2 more action items that they would have to consider. The first is the commission would request that and I'm going to call it a PBC from now on, Public Building Commission is a PBC, that the PBC issue bonds for this particular project. And in that, you need a fairly good estimate of the dollar amount of the project. That's about it. And so after you create the Public Building Commission, then you could consider a resolution that asks that PBC to issue bonds.
Sarah, can the PCB come from within the task force? I mean, members on that?
It certainly may. Our only recommendation is that we create a separate entity, so not all of, some jurisdictions want to have their county commissioners serve as the commission for the PBC as well. We recommend that you actually create a separate entity and appoint some different members that are interested. So, certainly the task force would be a great source for...
The task force is interested and they're up to speed on everything that needs to be done, is my...
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, so then, once you have created the PBC, then they would, and requested that they issue bonds, the PBC would need to conduct a meeting, and at that meeting, they would approve bylaws, and they would elect their officers. After that's done, then they would approve a resolution that would provide for the issuance of whatever you've requested in bonds be issued. You remember that resolution? Well, they would do a separate resolution of the PBC saying, okay, we intend to issue bonds for this project at this dollar amount. That then is published for 2 consecutive weeks in your newspaper, the PVC resolution. There's a 30-day period after that second publication during which 5% of the electors within the county could protest and say, no, we don't want this to happen. If that protest is sufficient, and that's submitted to the county clerk, if that is sufficient, then this commission has, the decision of, okay, either we move forward with the project by holding an election, or we stop at that point and don't do it. I'm aware of one project in my almost 17 years of doing this that was protested. So it's not very common, and if you have some good PR out there and a good task force getting the word out, that's typically not done. So I'm going to just leave with you, if I may, the draft proceedings. And you have all of this by email.
Yes.
Do we do a resolution to create the PVC first and then advertise for 2 weeks? Or do we advertise for the members and then we select them and then?
You don't need to advertise for members unless that's your choice.
Okay. All right.
So this commission has the ability to appoint interested residents of the county to serve on the commission.
We have 9 members that have extensive knowledge of what's went on for the last year on this project. So.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So yes, the matter of creation is really simple. You adopt that resolution, you appoint members. That's really all you need to do. And there's no requirement of publication from the county commission. The publication is required only for the resolution of the Public Building Commission.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
And here is a sample of the PVC organizational documents. I understood Commissioner Radcliffe might have some suggestions on that. I've got, just options in there if you want up to 9 members.
It's a good document.
Yeah, it's pretty generic, but certainly goes through the procedure that you need in order to govern your Public Building Commission. I might add, as a practical matter, public building commissions are formed usually when you have a particular project in mind. They can do additional financings in the future. Again, this can only be used by a governmental entity or a not-for-profit, qualified 501c3. So it's something that you can set up and use for any future public building projects. The city is looking at doing this for a swimming pool project. They're taking a slightly different route to how they want to create their public building commission. And so I'm not sure that what you create would really help the city. They're looking at doing an election, and again, the way they're doing it, they can hold an election for their public building commission, but it's not required by law. Again, you can just create one. Under the state law, there's no requirement of an election, but the way that the city is thinking with their swimming pool, they'd like to hold an election. So it's a little bit different structure. And again, I'm not sure that really what you create will really help the city.
One of our concerns as a task force is that we did not want to muddy the water for the city, because if this establishing a public building commission at the county level for assisted living and remodeling the skilled nursing care. We didn't want that to be confusing for the public and say, okay, the county's doing it this way, why didn't they do an election, or why is the city doing an election for